Alright everyone, don't mind the crow cawing in the background. They love to mess with the videos in the morning, and I'm no Lawrence O'Donnell here, so I'm not going to go crazy and lean out the window and start chucking rocks at things just because there's a bird out there. We got to talk about Mark Zuckerberg, you know, of Facebook fame. The man who, he says, my fellow humans, but I don't know about that myself. I think he might be a replicant or something. He's selling off a shit ton of Facebook stock. He's also saying that a new kind of non-voting stock that would have been offered by Facebook to invest in the company, that's not actually going to be offered to people. And now he's unloading billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of stock. Now, people have multiple reasons that they think would be responsible for this. His stated reason is, well, yeah, I'm selling it a bunch off. I'm going to donate a bunch to my own foundation and do some philanthropic work. Okay, all well and good. Another possibility is he's selling it off and, yeah, philanthropy may be involved, but ultimately it's because he knows the gig is up. This is what I think. I think he knows Facebook is going to flatline at some point soon. It's not going to continue to be capable of being profitable and probably will end up like MySpace. I think he's also worried because the government, in a bipartisan way, is now considering the concept that people have spoken of getting involved with some of these giants within legacy social media, which is at this point what Facebook and MySpace and sites like that are, in order to regulate them either as public utilities or, as I've said, should be done, to extend the First and Fourth Amendments explicitly to them, make it clear if they're U.S.-based firms, they're going to have to abide by the Constitution because they specifically involve themselves with the First Amendment. It is explicit within the charter of the purpose of these sites. All Facebook is an amalgamation of different pages that are run by an amalgamation of private individuals for the purposes of sharing information around and being entertained in so doing and making a profit in some cases in so doing. Explicitly a First Amendment practice. It's no different than a publishing house. So I think that he's worried that that will happen and that he'll have to stop censoring a bunch of bullshit on the site and take a hands-off approach. There are now an increasing number of people, mainstream individuals, mind you. This is prompted in part by Gab and Minds and some of these other alt-tech sites that have risen up and are actually stable and doing well and capable of making a profit. They've managed to convince the first wave of individuals, as far as like the mainstream politics and media, that it's a good idea for sites ultimately to just conform to the law and otherwise not censor anything. That suggestion has now for the first time been made by the mainstream. It's becoming a mainstream idea. Good. By the way, if it takes off, we're all saved. Internet will be fine forever. Oh, it'd be so wonderful. Can you imagine? The only things that would be regulated on these big sites anymore would be things that are properly understood to be supposed to be regulated. Like, yeah, you're showing yourself smoking crack. Well, you're breaking the drug law. I may not agree with the drug war, but still something that would have to be policed until it ends, if it ever does. You're selling sex services on YouTube or something. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and ban these people if you want. But if it's not criminal, if it's just this person is offensive, this person said something off color, this person is being a little bit mean-spirited, who cares? Who cares? You're adults. Grow up. Be adults. That would be so wonderful. Another possibility is he's setting up for a presidential run, but I'm leaning heavily against the idea that Zuckerberg would run. I think that Zuckerberg understands that while Facebook may be gargantuan, he himself as an individual is not particularly popular. That is, he's not particularly well-liked. It wouldn't matter if he stands... Also, have you seen him speak? He's a little bit robotic in that sense, too. He's also quite young. He'd be quite young for a presidential candidate. I think the idea of somebody who is complicit in selling user data to other companies on a regular basis, who is explicitly in favor of all sorts of heavy-handed censorship and didn't need to be asked, by the way, by any government to do so, would not make a good presidential candidate. Even if he could self-fund. He could pull a Trump. He wouldn't need to take any money from banks or corporations. He could easily fund himself to the tune of $500 million just to start, build up a war chest of $5-6 billion and flood everything. And he'd also have, obviously, the backing of one of the social media giants, which is Facebook. Herein lies another problem, though. You want to know a secret here, if Zuckerberg were to run. His site directly competes with sites that are even larger and more powerful. They would be completely against him. You wouldn't see much support for Zuckerberg on YouTube. You wouldn't see much support for Zuckerberg on Twitter. You wouldn't see much support for Zuckerberg on any Google platform. You wouldn't see much support from Reddit. You wouldn't see much support from 4chan. In fact, all these groups would be memeing and mocking him on a regular basis. And good, he would deserve it because he's a despicable individual. He is. I say that about Zuckerberg. I don't like him. I just don't like the way that he thinks. He's pro-censorship. He's obviously an authoritarian, on a different order than some of the classic authoritarian politicians, because he's part of the technocracy of old social media. I don't think he'll do it, though. I don't think he'll run. I don't think Mark Cuban will run either. You're more likely to see a run by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and thank goodness for that, because he might actually have a sane platform. Zuckerberg's platform would probably boil down to, oh yeah, people are offensive, we need to stop them from being so, and praise the CIA. And the same people that he supposedly, according to some conspiracy theorists, may have helped to design what became gargantuan Facebook in the first place. But he's clearly selling stock and quite proud of the fact that he's doing so. He's just claiming it's for philanthropy. Okay, maybe so. And if he does, by the way, if he's engaged in real honest-to-goodness philanthropy, like, you know, he's funding Rand Paul's eye surgeries, okay, that's a good thing about his character if he's doing that. That would be a good thing. It would show he has some moral beliefs. If he doesn't roll it over into public support for a presidential run, that is. He's more likely to run for a Senate position or something. He strikes me as the ever-college kid archetype of personality. I don't think he has the capability to govern in an executive manner. No, I really don't. You look, he's working with other people on Facebook. It's not just unilaterally, oh, Mark Zuckerberg calls all the shots. He's got all sorts of people, all sorts of staff and advisors he works with. That's the way a tech firm tends to be run if it's stable anyway. He's more of the Senate caricature than a governor or a president. And there is a big difference between these two. Within U.S. politics, there's a fairly strict delineation between people who do well in a legislative sense and people that do well in an executive sense. You can crack open any intermediate political science textbook and you can figure this out. There's a fairly clear delineation between the two. Chris Christie himself is wise enough to allude to this. Oh, it's different when you're a governor, Mr. Cruz, or I think he was talking to Rubio at the time. When you're an executive, the decision ultimately falls completely on you. You're totally alone. It's not like when you're in the Senate and you can sort of be drowned out by other people giving their own opinions. Technically correct. Don't have to like Christie to see the wisdom in that statement. So I don't think that Zuckerberg will run. If he did, he probably wouldn't win. I can't imagine that any amount of purchasing power would change that fact. He'd probably get completely clubbed over the head by some neoliberal dynastic politician, somebody like a Clinton or along those lines. It'd be funny, but I'm still not sure he's not a replicant. The way he walks, it looks a little mechanical, the way he looks, the way he talks. It's a little bit eerie, actually. I think he approaches the uncanny valley. And that would actually hold him back in a presidential campaign. Maybe when he gets another 20 years on him, maybe he begins to look a little bit more like, you know, a fellow human being. But there's no guarantee of that either. He might get Botox. He might end up looking like a Joan Rivers or something. No, I don't think he'll run. I think he's doing this just because he realizes Facebook at some point is either going to get government co-opted, it's going to collapse, it'll get supplanted, it'll actually finally be subject to anti-monopoly laws and get cracked apart. Like, oh, well, you can't control Instagram anymore. And you can't have the Facebook video needs to be split up too, because that's, you know, sort of gargantuan itself. Google may find itself in the same boat, though, so don't celebrate just yet. By the way, I oppose that. I don't have any problem with Google being monolithic so long as it's being fair. That would require regulating it as a public utility or a constitutional amendment or at least a legislative extension of the first and fourth two tech firms. That's all that requires in the case. You don't need to declare it a public utility. There are easier workarounds, ones that will be popular enough so that they're not likely to face any significant resistance, even within the current Congress that's so strangulated. Trump would sign off, I think, on something like that. Be a good thing. That's about all. Peace out.